Okay.
Hi guys. Hi Kelechi. How are you doing?
Hello, Melody. I'm good.
That's awesome. It's been a wild weekend, I must say.
Yeah, same here.
Awesome. Okay, so everyone, today's talk is on WebSocket communication, and by the end of the talk, or somewhere at the middle, Kelechi will be using WebSockets to build something on the go. So we are going to experience that WebSocketness and building alongside with Kelechi. So let's talk about our markers. My marker is on something called, distributive system with Alexa and the Erlang ecosystem. Erlang is a language, kinda, and there's an asterisk to that, kinda, and it's a language that's been battle tested for tons and tons of years, and it has stood the test of time. So Erlang is very uh, concurrently heavy code, so it's very concurrently focused, and it handles distributive system and error or failure like a badass. You should check it out. And Elixir was built on top of the Erlang ecosystem, so the Elixir inherits everything the Erlang has. And Elixir, actually, you could actually call the Erlang modules from Elixir as if they were in Elixir. And Elixir is very functional as well, so it's pretty much has this modern concept and programming paradigm, which I very much love. I love, the functional programming language and the idea of data immutability and all that stuff. So tell us, Kalechi, what's your marker on?
Yeah, so fortunately, we're both talking about distributed systems. So with you mentioned Erlang and Elixir. I know these two were used to build WhatsApp, and that's how WhatsApp is able to scale so a million more users, right?
Sure.
Yeah, cool, cool. So it's still mine is still around distributed systems. So I was reading this book, site reliability engineering at Google, and I get to there was a part where they get to explain how Google orchestrates their data centers. So and they talked about something really important. They talked about Budge. Budge is their own cluster. When you run distributed systems, you run them in clusters. So their own cluster operating system, right? So what it does, it manages job scheduling, memory management, and all that. So the thing is, I was wondering, is it that because in data centers you have racks and each rack has machines stacked
Okay.
inside. So these machines all have their own RAMs and everything. So how do they like install or manage each machine? But no, the way they do it, everything is being managed centrally by that operating system. So the operating system schedules which job should run in each machine and also allocates memory to it and all that. So and Burge gave birth to Kubernetes, which is now the container orchestration tool. So it was
Yeah.
quite interesting to see how these guys they scale to millions. They run distributed systems, both geographically distributed in terms of having a system in is Asia or Europe talk to a system in the US, something like that. So it was quite cool.
Oh, that's very awesome. Uh, Funny enough, Elixir handles, the I would say what Kubernetes does, Elixir gives you for free. It's built into Elixir, and it's heavily concurrent, like I said, and equally allows you to, like the internet mostly runs on Erlang, and this
Yeah,
is saying we have Cisco servers and stuff like that running the Beam software and all that, and Erlang was operates on the Beam software, which
yeah,
Elixir inherits from, and all that.
yeah.
It's very cool. I mean, distributed system is a way up, but some companies are actually migrating away from microservices.
Not some
This
companies. It's just Amazon Prime that did that. In fact, my boss had to remind me of that. Look, why we shout to Microservices? Look at Amazon. Amazon, they are switching from microservices to monolith, right? But
yeah.
still, they are running it in a distributed manner.
Oh,
So it's not
definitely.
about they are running in a distributed manner because each of those they just have to spin up more of those clusters, right? Now,
Yes.
in the application itself is monolith, right? So I think distributed system is different from how though distributed system enables microservices work. in a way, but distributed system is very different from how microservice orchestration is. I think microservice has to do with the application layer or something.
Yes, I think writing a distributed system can go as far as code sharing, not just code sharing, not just calling pre-computed data and stuff like that, but something like code sharing and all that deep layer of
Yeah,
things that could even be achieved with
yeah,
gRPC and all that stuff. It's very
yeah.
awesome. So guys, let's get on. Today we'll be talking about WebSocket communication. Uh, what is WebSocket communication, if you ask? Well, WebSockets is a persistent bidirectional communication system, or a protocol. So what this means is it's full duplex. So it allows you to send and receive message in both directions. So you could send and receive messages in both directions, and this can be done between the client and the server. Okay, so it's a way for a web page to communicate with servers without having to reload the page. So what happens in our traditional HTTP is when you run a post method. So when you post to your so let me say your front end or your back end, you get a response. And when the back end posts to you, sometimes you have to refresh to get that data and stuff like that. But WebSocket allows you to have a real time communication. So, and it's built on top of the HTTP protocol. So it uses the uh, underlying protocol or underlying system or underlying protocol or underlying software or engineering around the HTTP protocol. And what can you build with WebSockets? Well, you could build chat applications with WebSockets. Sometimes you want when you're chatting with someone, you don't want to be refreshing your page every time. Imagine you have WhatsApp or you have Facebook or you have Instagram or Twitter chatting, and every time you text someone, you have to refresh to see if they've replied to you or stuff like that. That would be very horrible experience. So with WebSocket communications or with WebSocket servers, you could build this system where there's real timeness to communication systems. You could equally use it in live streaming. So in situations like this, there are abstractions you could use from WebSocket to have streaming situations where you're either using your what's it called? What's the video protocol called? WebRTC. Well, or you could equally implement the WebSocket and have your chat section where you communicate and stuff like that. And in real time updates, of course, notifications are built mostly on WebSockets, right? So when you get notified or when there is something happens from somewhere, you want to get notified and stuff like that. So how you implement that is mostly with WebSocket communications. So we spoke about TCP. What does that even mean? What does TCP mean? Well, TCP means Transmission Control Protocol. So it's a protocol that it's very safe and reliable. So what it does, it handles something. It handles errors checking. It is very ordered. It's kind of reliable or very reliable, and it's used for communication. So it implements it uh, implements the IP network to communicate and allows you to handle communication. And as opposed to that, so what TCP does is it's sent. Imagine you send a message to a server. TCP ensures that that message have actually delivered to the server, and when it is delivered, then it knows that okay, this has happened. As opposed to that, we have something called UDP, which it's UDP doesn't care about you know whether a message gets delivered or not. UDP is like okay, it's like a ping server. And the ping here in Astar without the feedback loop. So UDP does not implement the feedback loop. It pings your server or sends a message like, okay, send this away, and it doesn't care whether you receive it or not. So the UDP is mostly used in things like video conferences like this, where you're doing a live stream, and uh, just because let's say I have an internet lag or something, and I'm like 30 minutes late or like 30 seconds behind, lagged. UDP doesn't care. It's not going to resend that video to me as a pre-recorded section, or as a saved section, well, it's just going to move on to the real timeness. And well, UDP has its own advantage as well, and here TCP. This is where you want to ensure that your user gets your message, or gets the data, or the receiving end gets the data you're sending. You want to implement the TCP protocol. So let's talk about the architecture of the WebSockets. Well, the way the WebSocket works is, it's so we spoke about a situation where you have this real-time nest. So, and for you to have this real-time nest, you have to cut down a lot of let's say buggy things, like a lot of overlays and stuff like that. So in cases where you are sending 10,000 giants, a giants file or something, you don't want to, like, first off, you don't want to send all that at the same time, or you don't want to add extras to it, right? So the way the WebSocket protocol works is, there is a handshake between the client and the server. So, in the initial connection, the server establishes a handshake. So, the handshake allows you to, establish that there is a connection, and in this handshake, reasonable and useful information are sent to the server. Things like the user states and stuff like that. Those things are sent to the server. The server agrees that, okay, this connection is actually valid, and when that happens, messages can be sent subsequently without the repeated request response. So it's not, you won't have to have this giant file of headers with everything being sent to the server no longer. So, and you can see that all those extras add up to why you don't have the traditional HTTP having the real timeness, because then and it's each time you make a trip to the server, a connection has to be established. The server has to verify that, okay, this is very valid, and all this, you have the required headers and stuff like that. But in the case of WebSockets, the first handshake establishes those guarantee that, okay, this actually a valid communications, and this is actually a valid should I say connection. I'm going to allow every other thing that comes through and stuff like that. And this in mind, you are going to wonder, well, if that's happening, if I'm not verifying that I'm sending the right data, if I'm not verifying certain things on every connection, uh, you know, it brings a lot of result to something like security and stuff like that. And uh, WebSocket has a way of handling that as well. But you can see here, there's there's this initial handshake, then there's the full duplex communication, so the bidirectional communication, whereby the server can send and the clients can send to the server, and they receive these messages in real time with a very little headers attached to each uh, connection, or each request that is being sent. So, well, it means that security, we are trading security for for real timeness. Actually, that's not true. So the WebSocket protocol uses a small amount of overhead for each message, such as its length and type. So the header is added to each message to ensure that the receiving party can correctly interpret the data. So in terms, there are situations where you want to either encrypt your data or something like that, or you want to make sure that your data is protected and stuff like that. Well, the WebSocket communication system has that covered, right? All these things were actually taught in the process of the engineering days, and in the process of setting up this, this abstraction over the HTTP system. The WebSocket protocol also includes a masking mechanism to protect against certain types of attacks, where the payload of the message is XORed with a random generated mask key before it is sent, and then XORed again by the receiving party to recover the original data. So, in the take for instance where you want to encrypt the data, right? So, your receiving your one end has to have some level of key, or some level of private key, and some level of public key. In this handshake process, or in the stage of handshake, well, this data is sent, and each side has this correct information. So the data can be masked, or encrypted or whatever, sent through this tunnel. And if anybody should just intercept this data and in the process, because well, your data are being intercepted in your regular HTTP protocol, right? If anybody intercepts the data and grabs them on the fly, they can't make reasonable information out of this data. And that's because the data in the WebSocket is masked. And only the receiving end that already has this handshake can actually unmask it and make reasonable information out of the data. And despite the small overhead, the WebSocket protocol provides a very efficient and scalable way to build real-time applications that can support a large number of concurrent users. Okay. With that said, now let's build a chat app. So I'm going to hand over to Kelechi, and Kelechi is going to run us through using this WebSocket communication to actually build a chat app. So, we said in Code Jams, we don't talk much. We try to explain the concept to you and explain it why we give you live demos and you see how things work. So, over to you, Kelechi.
Okay, sorry, my connection was a bit laggy. Can you hear me, Melody?
Yes, I can hear you, please.
Okay, just a second, let me get my screen up. Okay,
Okay.
okay. Okay, so that's the screen. So today I'm going to be we're going to be building a simple chat app with WebSockets just to fully explain the things Melody has talked about. And so first you might want to like grab the link to the repository. This repository has the code that we're going to start with. So this is a Nest.js application. So just clone this code to follow along, right? So let's do
Uh,
like a quick explanation of. Can
Sorry, could
you
you zoom
can you
in?
hear
Or
me?
your Yeah, your web browser is very tiny. I can barely see it. Could you zoom into that, please?
Okay. Okay. I just don't think. Can you see it now?
Uh, I don't know if you could maximize that screen and probably zoom into that section so we could see it.
Can you see it now?
Okay.
Can you see
So,
it?
yeah, definitely. So you want us to go to github.com/Kelechi Oliver K slash
Yeah.
nestjs ws.
Yeah. Next, just
Awesome.
yes, yeah. So here we
Awesome.
have like a boilerplate code of the things we're going to be needing. It has all the dependency in it, in packages and all that. So this is a Nest.js application.
All right. Awesome.
Okay, so let's just look at what we're going to be building. This is a trick I do. A trick I do a lot anytime I want to build something like have a mind map of what I want to do. So we're going to be building something like this. We'll have like a small front end that acts as the visible part. And we're just going to have it as a client, and then we'll have our server. So what happens is our client is going to send a connection request, try to establish a connection request to the server. And then the server, because the server is a WebSocket server, the server is going to respond and acknowledge the connection to say, okay, yes, I'm the server you're trying to talk to, and I support WebSocket protocol. And then during this process, an acknowledgement happens because this process makes use of the TCP, as Melody explained. So with TCP, there is a handshake where the server gets to acknowledge the request, and then for the client. Then after this is done, there is socket is created, and subsequent requests or messages from the server client, right, is sent through the socket that was created. So right here, we're just going to have like something like this. We're just going to have the client now sending just through a single socket, not no longer establishing any form of connection because the socket has already been created or open. So just going to have a server, and we're going to have that same client now sending a request through a socket like this. So this is now a socket. That's why WebSocket is faster. So it's a bi-directional communication. So packets can be sent or messages can be sent from the server to the client and the client to the server. Okay. So yeah, so this is it. So first of all, we establish a connection to the server. Next, we start sending messages through the socket. The server can send to the client, and the client can send to the server without refreshing or doing anything. So over here, back to yeah, the code. We're going to be using Nest.js. Nest.js has this thing called gateways. We're going to be using Nest.js framework as a backend Node.js library, right? uh, like to run the backend. And then for the clients, we're just going to be using a simple vanilla JavaScript. Okay, so I'm just going to explain the code real quick. The main focus here is us just getting to show how WebSocket works. Play around with WebSocket a bit, look at the request and all that. So looking at the code here, this is a typical Nest.js application, except the client folder. The client folder just contains the client JavaScript. So we have a normal folder structure with all our build configs, our TS configs, and pre-tiers and all that. So the most important folder here is the source folder. And inside the source folder, we have the main, which is the entry point of our application. And here you can see that we're creating a new Next.js application. We are telling the application to use the WebSocket adapter, and we're using the WebSocket adapter, right? So with Next.js has support for two socket implementation. That is socket.io and WebSocket. And by default, it uses socket.io. But in this case, we want to use the native WebSocket adapter. So that's why we're doing this here. We're telling Next.js, look, don't use the default socket.io adapter. Make use of the WebSocket adapter, right? So and we're telling our app to listen on 3000, and we're console logging the URL on which our app is listening on. Okay, so let's run the app to make sure it works. I'm just going to open up my terminal.
Okay, I think the terminal is
Yes.
on the screen. Okay,
Yeah, can
awesome.
you see my terminal?
Yeah, could you zoom in, please?
Yeah, I can.
I
Moment.
think, yeah, you have to use the command the
Okay, you know
plus.
what? I'm going to use the integrated terminal because I don't usually use integrated terminal with with my
Yeah,
VS
that
Code.
works.
I don't know why. Do you use it?
I don't use the integrated terminal for any reason, but
For some reason,
yeah,
I don't like it, but I'm
I
just
don't.
going to use it.
Yeah,
So I
sure.
believe that we can all see that I'm currently in the folder where I have the project. So let's try to run this. I'm just going to do. So let's look at our run script. I'm just going to open up the packages in file. So this file has commands to start the app. You can see we have here yarn start dev. The yarn start dev runs the Next.js application in watch mode, so that when we make changes, we can see it change. Automatically, the application will reload. Right. So I'm just going to do yarn start dev. So right now, I'm starting the application. You can see the application is running on 3000. And now our main application is running on 3000. So let me just explain the rest of the folder, the files in the folder, right? So next we have app.js file. For every Next.js application, you want sorry, we have app.js file. This is just doing a get hello, we're just trying to know if the application is running or not. This is just a service file. And we have the modules, the app modules. The app modules is like the root module. In Next.js, everything is organized into modules. So if you want to learn more about Next.js, Melody and I have done a video on introducing Next.js. I think Enterprise Next.js, Enterprise Ready application with Next.js. You can go there and you get more info on what imports are, controllers are, and providers. The main focus here is us demoing WebSockets and showing you how to build a basic WebSocket application, right? So I don't want to dwell much on this. So after that, we have the controllers. The controllers are just what receives request. So when you make a GET request, the controller receives it and then calls the service. The service returns maybe a string. The controller wraps it up and sends it as a response to the client. So here on the right, my browser, I'm just going to open up and try to do a GET request by default like this. Once I hit localhost, you can see that once I hit localhost 3000, you can see that I get a response, server is running. This tells me
Yeah,
that our
please.
server is running,
Can you
right?
also zoom in here? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. You know
Yeah,
what?
I think you could just zoom in generally in your entire web browser. That could help.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. Okay. So we can see that the server is
Awesome.
running, right? So our server is running. Let's continue with the rest of the code. So you can see that we have the basic modules and the basic service and controllers and all that, right? So inside the source folder, we have a folder called chat. This is our chat module. This is where we're going to be having the business logic to handle chat, right? And inside that chat folder, we have the chat module, which is the base module, right? So as I said before, Next.js organizes all your code into modules. So the chat module is different, the application module is there, and the application module inherits or imports the chat modules, putting it together to form the base module, right? Because if you look inside the main JS, you can see that we're importing the application module and we're using that to create the next application. Okay, so over to the chat module, we only have one provider, which is the gateway, right? And the gateway has a class here that implements the chat itself. So if you follow Next.js documentation here, you see that they call these things gateways, right? So you can see gateways, right? They're just normal providers. So you can see an illustration of what we're trying to do. We're trying to use the gateway to handle the whenever a request is sent through the socket, the gateways are invoked. Okay, so I think I've been able to run through the code and give a bit an explanation of what the backend is all about. If you follow this Next.js documentation, you'll be able to have clear understanding of what's going on here. So that said, let's look at the next component of our application, which is the client side, the front end, what the user gets to see. So on the client side, let's open up the client folder. This is just a basic HTML file. Anybody that has seen a HTML file should understand what this is doing. We're just having a body here. We're having welcome. We're having an input that takes the chat input, and we're having a send button, and we're having a list that renders the chat. That's it. And we're also importing our JavaScript file. We're also importing our style sheet. So inside here, you have the style sheet with some basic styles to make it look good. Yeah, I like good web pages though. And then we have the index file. The index.js file is an empty file here. So we've not written any code, we've not opened any WebSocket connection and all that. That's what we're going to be doing. Okay, so I'm just going to launch the front end. So we're seeing both of them. I'm going to come here and I'm going to launch the front end using live server.
Okay.
So yeah, this is the front end. You can see we have our basic chat application. The idea is in here, we type in something and we click send, it gets sent. So if we open this browser in a new tab, we see that message. And from that tab, we can also send message to the next part. So to this other tab. So we're seeing this tab, it's a different user, and a new tab is a different user. You understand?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So that's it. So this is the client side, which is the front end, and inside here we have the backend related code. So without further ado, let's go in and start implementing the chat gateway, the backend, the chat gateway class, and adding methods to it to handle WebSocket connection. Okay, so what we'll do first, because we want to okay. So first of all, we want to handle incoming connections. We want to be aware whenever a user connects to um, our WebSocket application. So right here, if you look at this, with just this alone, our application is already responding to WebSocket requests, right? We'll get to test that. It's already WebSocket ready. Like whenever a client sends a WebSocket request, it can respond because we've already imported a gateway here. We've already started a WebSocket server, but we've not added methods to the class that defines how to handle that WebSocket request, which is what we're going to be doing now.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll be using Postman to do the WebSocket test before we come over to the clients to play around with it.
Okay. And also, I think just to be, just to throw more light on that, the reason this is happening is because of the decorators that carry metadata and all the
Yeah,
extras, all the extra overlay. So
yeah,
Next.js has implemented that for us on the hood. So all we have
yeah.
to do is just implement how we use that or how the application should respond when there's an incoming message or something of the nature.
Yeah, yeah. So with Next.js, we can so let's add methods like first of all handle connection, which is a method that gets called whenever a new client connects to the WebSocket server. So just going to use that, and handle connection gets the client, which is a WebSocket, right? So this is a WebSocket, and we can, oh, the WebSocket type is gotten from WebSocket here, right?
Okay.
So this happens whenever a client connects, right? So what do we want to do whenever a client connects? We want to do a console log. Want to do console log new client connection to see, right? So let's just check this out and see that it works. So I said we're going to be using Postman to test it. So if you've not used Postman to test WebSocket endpoint, where you're going to see that now.
Awesome.
So yeah, so I'm just going to make sure I remove all of the.
Also, can you zoom into your postman so we
Yeah,
can
yeah, I'm
see?
doing the right way. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in a bit. I'm just going to go into. Okay, so with Postman, let me zoom in. Let me just open Postman in a new. Or
Okay, Newton.
I think I want to have them both so that we can see the responses showing up here, right? So I'm just going to zoom in.
Okay.
Can you see Postman now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I'm just going to open up this a bit and then I'll just click. So if you want to test a WebSocket endpoint with Postman, the thing you do is you click on new and then from here you select WebSocket request and then you enter in the URL of the server. In this case, our URL is localhost 3000, right?
Yeah.
So we
Calling to
click on
phone.
connect. And see that we get log here saying new client connection. This means our handle connection function is triggered.
Okay.
Okay, so next thing we want to do, we want to implement another method, which is handle disconnect. So which is handle disconnect.
So I think I would have one question. The handle connection, is it an inbuilt method or an inbuilt recognized method that you have to write? Or you
Yeah,
can just write anything?
it's an inbuilt recognized method. So if we go, thanks for the question. If we go into the Next.js documentation, you see that if you scroll down, you see that they have you can implement a class, right? I've forgotten what that class is. So you can implement a class that just gives you that types in IntelliSense, but by default, if you have that, okay, just hold on. Okay, yeah, you can see it here on module on gateway connection. So once you
Okay.
implement this class, it forces you to implement the handle connection method, right? So, but
Okay.
even though you don't, other things are just types. So if I implement on gateway connection, see that if I don't add that handle connection, it's going to error, right?
Yeah.
It's going to error.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
that's telling you that by default, this chat gateway, whatever class you're creating with that has this WebSocket gateway decorator as an injector, automatically when you add a class handle connection, when you add a method handle connection, that method gets called whenever it receives a new connection.
All right. Awesome.
Okay, so we're just going to leave the implement on gateway connect there, just to remind us that we need to have handle connection method inside, and we're also going to add our handle disconnect, right? So
Awesome.
handle disconnect, so that we want to be aware whenever a client disconnects. I'll mention reasons why handle disconnect. So with handle disconnect, we get past the client as well, which is type of WebSocket.
Okay.
Then let's console log client disconnect. Okay, so let's say that our server is going to restart, and then let's try and see if the handle disconnect gets runs whenever we disconnect. So we're going to connect again. You see that we get a console log, new client connection, and now we're going to disconnect. You see that we get a console log again, client disconnect. Right? So that
Yes.
tells us that these methods are getting called whenever we connect and whenever we disconnect.
Yes.
All right, so let's move on to the next phase. I'm just going to expand this a bit, and then I don't know if I can shrink this. No, I can't. Okay. The next thing is we want to be able to have a map. This is why most persons don't write WebSocket with the native WebSocket implementation because you need to do a lot of manual work, right? But they try to use something like Socket.io because Socket.io already implements most of the stuff you try to do. But sometimes when you're doing something very basic, it's good you use the native implementation because it removes other overheads that has already been added by Socket.io, right? So since we're using native WebSocket implementation or adapter, we need to write some custom codes to manage the number of clients that have been connected so that whenever I want to send a message to a specific client, we can go through that map and send to that client. You understand?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we're going to be using native JavaScript maps here. Okay, so we're going to have in-memory maps. We're going to store whenever a client connects, we store some metadata of the client in memory. Okay, so we have clients here, and it's going to be a map, and the map is going to be a socket. Sockets. We're importing sockets from no. Okay, it's going to be the client is going to be a string that holds WebSockets type as the value,
Okay.
right? That's the type, and it's just going to be a new map class, which is a native JavaScript map having a string as well as the WebSocket, sorry, string. WebSocket. Um, I make a mistake as the type. So the WebSocket is capital letter W socket. Yeah. So this is the this map is going to have a key where the key is where the key is a string and then the value is the WebSocket instance that was connected. So just like a map, an object rather.
Okay.
Okay. So if by the way, I'm looking here because my screen is here and the camera is here, just in case.
I
Okay.
totally understand.
Yeah. So next, now whenever there is a new connection, we want to add it to the map, right? And we want to give them an ID. So we're going to be using nano ID for that, right? So nano ID is already included in the in our package.json file. So we want to then do call this dot client dot set setting a new value where the ID is the ID we have here, and then the value is the client I just connected. So the client here. Okay, so yeah, so let's just make this clear. We can call this client ID, then rename this to client ID. All right, so now whenever a new client connects, we add this to the WebSockets in-memory clients map here. Right. So the next thing we want to do is we want to also remove it whenever a client disconnects, so that we don't have our map getting filled whenever a new connection is made without getting reduced. So we want to also do think we can do some array maps. How do we find the client's ID? So we can do some simple array maps. What kind of array maps do we do to find the client's ID? Have you been working with maps?
I I use objects. I don't. I use objects a
Okay.
lot.
JavaScript
Okay.
objects.
Yeah, JavaScript objects.
Okay. Me too. So we can generate an array from the client. So we can do array.entries. This will give us an object, and then we can do an array there, right? So which entries, client.entries returns an object having the an array of arrays having the keys and the value pair,
Value.
right?
Yeah.
You can use that to find on it, and then the first instance is the key, and the second instance is the client, the value itself, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we
I
find
need to
here,
the client ID.
it's actually an array where the first one is the key. I'm just going to name it the key, and the second one is what the value.
Okay.
So know that the value. Okay, so the value is actually the WebSocket instance itself. So if the value return the item if the value is equal to the client that just disconnected. So I think I need to clean it a bit.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you have to close that. So if I'm getting this correct, that's you're destructuring the key and the value.
Yeah, yeah, into an array,
Okay.
right? So and then we can get the so if it returns the item, it's definitely going to return an array. So we just want to get the first item, which is the ID itself. You understand?
Yes, I do.
So this client dot entries returns an array of array where each array inside that array has a key and a value, right? So here we're just having the key and the value. What we're doing here is we're using the value to check the client instance that connects. If they are the same thing, it means that it was this client in the array. We're trying to find this client in the array, sorry, in the map we have here, above here. So when we do
Okay. I
equal
think
equal, we're looking at the value.
okay. Could you consider splitting it into a comment and giving a small demo of how it's going to look
Okay.
like?
So we
Yeah.
have something like an array of array. Just a comment, an array here, and inside it we have another array inside. This is how they are all organized. Each is a client where you have the key, which is what we're setting as a nano ID. Can be a random string, right? Nano
Yes.
ID generates a random string. And then the second item is an object having a reference to the client object, WebSocket object itself, right? Things
Okay.
like I'll call this the WebSocket instance.
Okay.
I'll just name it the WebSocket, right? So this is the kind of shape you get all over whenever a client connects. Whenever we do this, this is the shape you get, right? So that's why you see that's why this will be another ID, right? So that's why we're doing array.from. Array.from is just us creating just an array from this so that we can call dot find on it. Right? I can still do this without even using the array.from, but for consistency's sake, I'll just use array.from. So when I do a dot find, first of all, I get past the items inside the array. So I get past an array,
Okay. That's the first
right?
layer.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the first layer. And that array has the key, which was the ID, and then the WebSocket instance, which is the value.
Okay.
And now we're using the value and we're saying if return this item, right? If the value matches the clients that just connected here.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing. And since it's returning, it's going to return an array having the first item as the key and second item as the WebSocket instance.
All right.
And then we're just doing a dot and we're picking out just the first item in the array, which is the key.
Okay.
You understand? Yeah, so that's
Yes.
what it's just doing.
All right.
All right, so we've been able to find the ID of the clients that just disconnected. What we'll do is we just need to remove it from the just need to remove it from the set, right? So for us to remove it from the set, we can just do if ID, just to make sure that the ID is a valid number. It's a valid string, not undefined. We'll just do this dot client dot delete, and we'll pass in the client ID.
Okay.
Right? So this will remove the client. So we've been able to, whenever a client disconnects, we've been able to um, remove that client from the client's map we have here.
Yeah.
Are we cool? Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Sure.
we've done major part of the code, which is having a map of the clients on connection and having a map of the clients and updating that map whenever there is a disconnection. So the next thing is for us to actually implement the charts actually, right? So for us to implement the charts with Next.js, there's something called subscribe message. We need to subscribe to a particular message sent by the clients. With WebSocket works with something called events and message types. So you send a particular message type, the server recognizes that message type and chooses to send a response based on that message type. So we're going to use at subscribe message, which is a decorator that allows you to subscribe to a particular message. And inside it, you pass in the kind of message you want to subscribe to, the kind of message type you want to subscribe to. And in this case, passing in a chat. Whenever
Would you
a
Yeah, would you say this subscribe message implements the pop sub mechanism?
No, I think well, at this point, it's just a layer of abstraction of whatever Next.js core library, how it handles it. But all I know is on top on the at the surface, what it does is just looking at the messages that were sent by the client. When we go to the client, we see how we send messages. Messages just is stringified payload. So inside that payload, there is a
Okay.
type attached to it, and it's looking at the type. If that type matches what this method implements, it calls that function.
All right.
All
Awesome.
right, so we're just going to have a method to handle that. Is it asynchronous? Yeah, it's asynchronous, and we're going to have it as handle chat, just a normal method. And then what do we do here? What do we get as argument? We get the client itself, which is a WebSocket client. And we also get some payload, which is the data that was sent. And I said before, this data is a string. It could be anything depending on what your front end is sending, because you know what you're writing. So when you build the backend, you know what you should do from the front end. It could also be an object, a stringify object or something like that. So in this case, it's just a string, right? So what do we do next? Just a second here. Okay, so right now let's console log the data that gets sent. So it's console.log data, and let's test this out. Let's try to
Okay.
send a message that has, and let's also return a response, like a response like message received or something like that. So we're just
All right.
going to do a return here, message received. Can you hear me?
What would
Yes,
you
I
like
can.
to know about SCH Morris?
I think you activated your
Can you
series.
hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So we'll just do this, and here we'll try to compose a message and see how it works. So I will come here, try to connect back, right? So we get here, new client connected, and then let's compose a message and see. I'm just going to console log, send a JSON payload, right? So here I'm going to have data, and data is going to be hello, and then I'm going to add a type chat so that we can our backend will see that and then recognize which function to call. So we're just going to send that payload. Okay, we sent a type chat and nothing happened, right? So is it type or data type?
I I can say actually. We
Yeah, this
can.
was a bit confusing
Yeah.
for me. So I'm just going to try this, see what type. So let me save this to make sure it's saved, right? Let me just check. Let me check something to make sure I'm doing the right thing.
Or we could equally check the documentation.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Documentation
Okay,
is lifesaver.
a very good lifesaver. So, just for brevity, is there could we kind of probably
Okay,
return
it's called
uh,
events.
oh events?
Yeah, let's
Of
try
course, they
it.
are like yeah,
Oh yeah, it's events.
awesome.
Yeah, you see,
Whoa,
you cannot do without the docs. It's events. So
honestly,
I think I think it's with Next.js, you just have to read the docs. Once you read the docs, you just figure out the way these guys do these things. So it's events. So you see that once you send the type event chat, you see that we're getting hello, yeah, which is what we did. Yeah, we're console logging the data that was sent.
yes, definitely.
Okay. So let's move on to the next part, which is us
And if I'm
broadcasting
being
that. Yeah.
if I'm so this return here should return it as well to the front end if this is this what we intended for?
Yeah. So we want to just acknowledge that we received the message. Okay, we should return data. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like returning this data is does it mean we are able to see it in the front end being returned as a
Yeah.
message received?
Yeah, we can. So if you look here on the right with Postman, you can see that we're getting just hold on, let me carry this up. We're getting message received here.
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah,
So we scale the see it, and it's just like an acknowledgement, right?
yeah,
Okay, so what do we do next? We want to now broadcast this message to other people that were connected, except these clients that sent the message. So it's just like a room. You send a message, we broadcast it to all other sockets that were connected. Right. So that's what we want to do. And for us to do that, we can use this dot. So we can create a method that handles sending broadcasting message. Right. That's fairly straightforward. So let's just do that. So we'll have a private method here. So we'll have private send broadcast. We'll just name the method send broadcast.
okay,
And here we'll have the sender who we want to send to, which is a WebSocket instance. The person sending the message, definitely, which is this client here, right?
yes,
So
yes,
next we would have the event. What kind of event are you sending for? Which is most likely a string, and then the data. For this case, the data is just a string, anyways, but it could be anything you want to send to the front end. It could be an
yes,
object, stringified object, right? Okay, so let's now implement it. First of all, I want to get the sender ID. Now, this is where the map comes in handy, right? We want to find the ID of the sender so that we know how to send it to the rest of the clients without sending to the person that sent it. If you send a message, you don't want to be receiving your own message that you sent, right?
definitely. Yep.
So now let's find the ID. So we'll still use the same pattern we used here to find the sender ID by doing an array map and all that. So we just go an array map here.
Could we abstract that
Which
to probably a method or a function so we can always reuse it?
we use, right? Okay, so we
Yeah,
just have a private method here. Find what? Find ID
an ID. Yeah,
that takes in the client, which is a WebSocket instance, right?
yes, please.
And this method, let's be implicit or explicit. Let's be explicit. And this method
Okay.
returns a string. And then
I
we
think it
just
is in the
do,
clients. Oh, the clients. Yeah.
yeah, client.
Okay.
And we just return the client's, I like giving one line. I don't know. Client's ID.
Okay.
Right, so we've done that. So right now we can then replace this with where we have client.id. We can then call this dot find ID and then passing the WebSocket instance, right?
Yes, please.
Web, sorry, passing the client, which is
Clients, please. Yeah.
yeah. So we can then reuse this. Perfect. We're making our code more reusable.
Yeah.
So we can still do the same thing here and call this dot find ID and passing the sender in this case. So now we
I
have the
guess.
ID.
Yeah, I guess it's
Yeah,
because I'm very lazy naturally, so I would always look for shortcuts.
that's
Yeah.
cool. that kind of laziness is cool. Right? We want to also make sure if the sender is not a valid ID, maybe somehow, just want to add error checks. If not sender, we just want to so if sender, we want to return, if not sender rather. So we want to change this to return, right? Because if there's no sender, there's no need anyways. That message doesn't seem valid. And now we want to now send the message. You understand? So we'll go through the clients, but for each, all the clients, we want to broadcast the message to all the clients that's connected, all the sockets that's connected, except the sender. That's just what this method is trying to do. Okay, so we want to go through all the clients we have, and for each client, we get the client and then the client's, for each item, we get the client and the client ID. And then this is a function, we're passing it a function. So just open the function braces, and then this method, we get the client and the client ID. Okay, so with the client and the client ID, what do we want to do? We want to check if the client's ID matches the sender's ID,
Yes, please.
right? Okay. So if the client ID is not equal to the sender's IDs, rather,
Okay.
ID not equal to the sender ID, because we don't want to send to the sender.
Yes.
If
Then we
if
can.
it's not, then it's not the sender, right? We want to now do client dot send. I want to send in a JSON stringified payload because the client is receiving a string, receiving it as a string, right?
Okay.
So we want to simplify our payload, and then we want to send out an event that was passed as well as the data.
Okay. Awesome.
So the event that was passed by whatever method is calling this function, and also we want to
So,
make sure that yeah.
so generally, the reason we are sending back the events to the front end is because the front end can now subscribe to different events, like, and do filtrations on the front end. Or is there a reason we
Yeah,
are sending back this? Okay.
yeah, so we're sending back so that the front end can say, okay, no, this payload that is coming from the socket I connected to, what kind of event is it? It could be for something else, right? If you're chatting, you could be chatting, having messages that is coming from a room or from a private chat.
Okay.
Right? So the front end wants to be able to know, okay, you're sending me a payload, what kind of event is that? Right. So that's why we're sending back the event.
Awesome.
And also want to make sure that before we send to the clients, that client has already established an open connection. Right. So we want to make sure that we'll do something like client dot ready state. This I checked. I had to check the documentation. Is equal to WebSocket instance dot open. Right. So we want to make sure
Okay.
that the socket instance is open. Rather,
And okay. Cool.
yeah. So that's it. So like this now, we've been able to implement a method that broadcasts the message to all connected clients. Right. So next thing, we just have to use that method. So inside here, where we subscribe to a message, we get a new message. We then call this dot send broadcast, and we pass in the sender, which is the client that connected to this WebSocket instance, the event. So how do we get the event? That's another question. How do we get the event? Is there a way to get the event?
That is not coming from the data.
The
So
event?
first of, so we're already in our send broadcast. Can you? I think we already have the events coming through in
Yeah,
our send broadcast.
we already know the event because we
Okay.
know that we're subscribing to a
That's
particular event, right? So we can then
okay.
pass the data.
So we just
Remember, we're subscribing
take
to
that
the
as
chat event.
a global type. Yeah, we could just have that as a global type and use it in our documentation just in case. Like,
Okay. Like up
so
here, we have a constant or something.
yeah,
Event type
yeah,
chat and equal to chat, right?
yes. So we are assuming that the front end knows that our event type is chats.
Yeah. Okay. So we can just come here and where did we use it here? We now replace here with that constant there so that a developer will not go somewhere and just change it, right?
Yes, please. So,
mistakenly, right?
and when it changes, it always reflects every other place.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, so we've been able to do this. I think we've handled the major part of it. Let's test and see what happens. Um, so for us to do that, let's first of all connect back here on the right here with post. Now we connect back, and now let's send a message. So with Postman, I'm not seeing a way to we can send a message, but no way for us to subscribe to a message, right? So we can send hello. Let's just check that. Um, yeah, our message is getting sent to the backend, right? And our backend is already sending it out to any other socket connection that is made. So no other socket connection is made, right? So let's try to open a
Yes.
new tab and see if we can make another socket connection. So I'll just come here and see if I can duplicate this. And then I just duplicated it, and I'm just going to do
Localhost port 3000.
localhost 3000. I'm going to connect. Right? So I just connected here. Right here, let me check that I'm still connected. Yeah, I'm still connected. Let me send out a message. I just sent out a message. All right. So, and
Yes,
you can
please.
see we received that message here. Can you see?
Yes, I can say it.
But that
Oh,
message
that's
here, right? What we're getting here is the message we sent.
okay.
Yeah. So,
And
so
and it's
that's
signified by the down arrows and front
yeah,
top
by
arrow.
arrows, right?
Yeah.
So that's it. So next, now what do we do next? Let's wire in the client so that we have a visual on things. Like if you're building something for the users will not come and use Postman to
Postman.
test.
Uh,
So when you be like, it's working on my local system, and your project supervisor or project manager is like, let's ship your project your local system. And that was how Docker was made, right? Docker is shipped the
yeah.
entire system. Okay, so let's go over to the client, and this is our client here. This is our simple chat application. Right now, it's doing nothing. If I press the send button, nothing happens, right?
Yes,
So
please.
let's see how we can get our hands steady. So I'll just go in, trying to not take too much time. So I've explained the code. So let's start writing some JavaScript here.
Okay.
So with the front end, first of all, we want to establish, if you remember the diagram I had here, we want to establish a connection to the server, and then make sure that we have a connection open. So to do that, we use WebSockets on the front end. So we have a WebSocket instance, we name it WS, and we can do new WebSocket. So it's a built-in API, browser API, and
Okay.
with WebSocket, we pass in the URL. You can see the way we passed it in. We passed it in with WS, right? Telling you that this is a WebSocket URL, right?
Yes, please.
And we're using localhost
3000.
3000, right? So with this now, we've just established a connection to our WebSocket backend. Now let's add events so that we get to know what happens when this connection is open, right?
Yes,
So
please.
that's what we're going to be doing next. So we just do ws.add event. By the way, all these things are all in the MDN documentation. So if you go and you Google MDN documentation, you'll see the these methods there, right, in the docs. So we're going to listen for the open event. So whenever the WebSocket connection is open, we want to log that, right? So we just have a method that gets the event, and
Connection establishes.
then console log new web socket connection.
Awesome.
All
Very
right.
ambiguous. Very
Okay. So
ambiguous.
also want to listen for the close event, right?
Yes, please.
When the connection is closed. All right. So here we're getting the event, and then we're going to just console log
Connection closed.
closed. Yeah. All right. So with this now, we can look into our. You can see it's already connecting because you're seeing these console logs here coming in. So let's look
Yeah.
at our console log in the browser. So let's look at our console here.
Could you zoom into that, please?
Yeah, I just opened the wrong. So let me open
I,
it.
I thought as much.
Yeah, so you can see new socket connection, right?
Um,
So it's showing
is there
there.
a way to zoom into the console of the browser?
Yeah,
Yeah, there
Google got
is.
so
Google
you can
got my
see
back.
new socket connection. So let's continue with the rest of the code. Now we want to attach some vanilla JavaScript handlers, like attach it to these classes and all that. So if we look here at the index, we can see the name of the inputs, we can see the name of the button, right? So we'll just use that right
Okay.
away. We will get the chat list first of all, where we add incoming chats,
Okay.
and we can do document query selector. What is the query selector? We can use the ID. The ID of that stuff is chat list.
Okay.
And then we can also get the button, the send button,
Okay.
query selector, or with buttons, because there could be multiple buttons and we don't want to start having ID, we can just use get element by ID.
Okay.
And we pass in the ID of the button, which is send BTM.
And all this can be found in the HTML part of the code, right?
Yeah. And so if you look at the HTML part of the code, you can see that the button has an ID of send BTM, the chat list has class of chat list, and the input has an ID of chat input. So we just copy the ID of the text area next. So we want to
Okay.
get the text input, get element by ID, and we want to put in that ID. So we have all our elements. We have the chat list, which is the this widget here, this component here. We have the send button as well as the text area that handles the input. Okay, so now we want to attach an event handler to the button so that whenever the button clicks, we send the message, right?
Yes, please.
So how do we do that? Can say button, but add event listener. We want to listen for what event? We want to listen for the click event.
Click.
And
Yes.
then we're passing a method that should be called whenever the button is clicked. And first of all, we want to get the message that was inside the input, right?
Okay.
So we want to do text inputs dot value, right? Stuff
Okay.
like the media value. I don't know why, but it's actually value.
Yeah, the intelligence sometimes messes my day up. I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
this is what you want, and it's just like, no, you
So
want this. It's
yeah.
crazy.
So right here, I want to send the message to the server. Send message. I'm just going to write it there. We've not implemented a method to handle the sending of messages, right? So and then we want to reset the text input dot value to an
An
empty
empty.
string,
Okay.
and then want to also update the list, right?
Yes.
So we want to also add our own message to the list so that we'll see if this person is maybe the person will send the group will send the message to respond. We want to see that okay, this is the message I sent and this is what the person responded.
Okay.
Okay, so we implemented the method. Let's just console log the value and see that we're seeing the value, the message that was sent.
Okay.
Right. So trying to catch up with time. Right here, I'm just going to put in some values. I'm going to click send. Right. We can see the value showing up in the console here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So our event listener is working. So next now let's have a method that does what? That a method that sends the message. Right inside here, just going to have up here because I don't want to have a function that I'm using before declaring. Up here, just going to have a method that does sending of messages. So inside here, what do we do? We call it send message. Just a normal JavaScript function, and What does the send message function need to do?
So I think it basically has to push to the the API.
Okay, so it has to get the message, right?
Yes. Yes, please.
Obviously, and then it's going to construct the message, how it should look. We need to pass in an event type. Remember,
Yeah. Yes,
which is the
please.
chat event,
So
and then we
uh,
also need to pass in the actual message, which is the data.
yeah.
Okay, I have a typo here. Okay, and then we want to send it through the connection. So we'll just do if ws.open. This just tells us that the connection is open, right? I want to do
Yes.
ws.send. As simple as it is, the message that we just created up there.
Yeah.
So right here, where we attached it to the handler, we want to just um, call that function send message. I'm passing the message.
Message.
Yeah, so
That's
let's test this.
okay.
So the WebSocket has connected. Let's say hello melody. Let's send. You see, we get hello melody
Also,
console here. Mm,
Sorry, there's something wrong. Please try again.
hello.
Siri is awesome. Yeah, Siri is always awesome. I think so.
So you
Currently
just
now, if we connect to our Postman instance, we are going to
yeah,
see Hello Melody, right?
yeah. So let's just connect here. Okay, this is already connected.
Yep.
Let's see. This I think this has disconnected or something. Did I change something on the server? Let's see.
Uh,
I'm here.
Why is Siri taking over?
I think Siri loves you so much. So
No, no. Okay, I'm just going to refresh this
okay.
and then send this again. Okay, let's look at what's going on here. We're supposed to get a message here, right?
Can we verify our event type for a minute?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the
So
event type.
let's send, yeah, the events here is chat. Can we verify? I think we are using the keyword event type, right?
The keyword
Uh,
event
could,
type.
could you check the what's the name? The open the API for a minute, like the backend.
Okay. This is the
Okay.
backend.
So where are we getting? Where are we doing our rest? So we have the event type. First off, let's check the event type here.
Okay. The event type is chat.
Okay, it's chat.
Yeah.
And let's check the name we are using as in our on our event type. So we initially called it. I think that should be. Oh, it's called events.
Yeah, events. So we're using
Okay.
each event. So let's just cross-check this again. Sometimes when clients don't connect or reconnect properly, it sometimes might just lead to issues. So here we have events, type
Yeah.
chat, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So let's just disconnect this and connect again.
All right.
So we'll just establish the new connection. And in here, let's see if we can send. Let's look at the network
Yeah, please.
and see what's going on. First of all, let's go back to the server and console log. I think there is a console log whenever we receive a message, right? There
Yeah, I
is.
think it's not hitting the server. Can we pick at the network?
Yeah, let's look at the network. Okay.
Okay. Can you try sending?
Yeah, I just have to refresh. Okay. This is let's filter in. So you see that we have WebSocket connection.
Okay.
And let's look at messages. Okay, nothing is sending. It hasn't sent the message to the server.
Yeah.
So we need to stringify the message. So
Oh, yeah, that's
we always
true.
send a dissignified payload. That's why most
Yeah,
times people use those socket.io because they've done all those things behind for you. So you just pass in your normal JavaScript object,
and it
right?
stringifies it for you. Yeah, that's true.
Yes, yes. So if you make mistakes like this, you're on your own because you're just going to be suffering. So I see that we get the message on the back end, and you can
Yeah,
see if we look at the
and
WebSocket connection, you can
and
see
our
the
postman
message
should
here.
have responded to that as well.
Yeah, let's look at Postman, and you see Postman has it. So
Awesome.
we fixed 20 bucks today, don't you think so? We need an
Yeah,
award.
yeah, we need an award right now. Best
So the
fixing
next,
bugs.
sorry.
I say best in fixing bugs or best in fixing WebSocket bugs.
Yeah, yeah. So the next thing I will need to write a method that updates the list. The list is this thing we have here below, right?
Yeah.
So this part, yeah. So let's write a method for that. Just above or below send message, we add a method called update list,
Okay.
and it gets the message. Here I'm not using types because we're using JavaScript. So if I do that, the browser would shout at me. So it gets two arguments. One is the message, and then a condition if this message is coming from the sender or it's being received, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, so because we're going to be using this update list, we're going to be calling this method inside the send message function, as well as we're going to be hooking the WebSocket to an event, to
Okay.
this chat event. Okay, so first of all, we get a new list. We create a new list item, rather, new
Yeah,
list item,
that's an li
which
tag.
is yeah an li tag, which is using document dot create element. I love IntelliSense. We're going to create a list tag, and then we're just going to change the class name because I already have a class attribute for it. It's item dot class name. We're going to equate it to something. So if it's the sender, we want to use a particular class name. If it's not the sender, we want to use a different class name just to decorate the list item a bit, right?
Okay.
So if it's the sender, we want to use the message class. And if it's not the sender, we want to use the message class and add a class to it, which is the message class and the receive class,
And this
right? So
CSS has already been written.
yeah, this CSS has already been written here. So if you look at the CSS, you see that here we have the message class and here we have the received class. The received class just adds a green border to the list item and then aligns it to the right.
All right. Awesome.
Okay, so we've added the class. Next, we want to start appending it to the list. Okay, we want to add a paragraph text. Right. So first of all, we need to create the paragraph document dot create element, which is a paragraph, and then the text p text dot text content, right? Text content we equate it to a string. We're going to just use template retorts because we want to do some conditioning and also pass the message inside. Right. So what do we do? So if it's
Yeah.
sender, we want to add an arrow to it just to decorate it a bit, right?
Okay.
Just to decorate it could be an arrow like this or an arrow like this.
Okay.
That this is coming from the sender. Else, so sorry, I'm just going to do this inside here. Add an arrow like this. Then else would want to add an arrow that goes this way.
Okay.
This might not look good, but we'll copy an arrow from the web, the proper arrow from the web. Then we want to also include the message that was getting sent or received.
That's the MSG.
Yeah, that's MSG. Now we want to add this item, use this item dot append. We want to add the paragraph to the list, right?
Okay. Yeah.
P text. Then now let's add the list item to the on other list, to the chat list.
Okay. Which is the UL.
Yeah, which is the URL. Yeah, so here we've been able to do our update list method, right? So next, real quick, let's use our update list method. So whenever we get a message, we send it through the network, we need to update the list, and we pass in the message that was sent. And then, is this the sender? Obviously, this is the sender because whenever the button is clicked, is the sender sending the
Yeah.
message.
Yeah.
So we'll say is sender true.
True.
All right, so now we've done that. Let's test it. So let's do something. Let's send a message and we'll send. You see that we get that thing added to
Yes.
the list here. All right,
Yeah.
so because of we're explaining this, let's open a new tab and add as a second user. This is the first user. This is a second user somewhere. And you can see on the
Could
second
you
user, we're not getting any message sent here, received here.
could you grab it out and put it on side by side? So just drag out
Uh,
the
okay, I
that.
can create two below it, right?
Yeah, I think you can drag it out. Drag out that tab.
Yeah, if I drag it out, it's going to open a new window.
Yeah, that's
You
that's what I'm saying. So we could see side by
just
side.
let me arrange my monitor a bit to handle that. So I'll just align the screen like this,
Okay.
then move this code here. Then I'm just going to drag it to the bottom.
Awesome.
This works, right? I'm
Yeah,
going to
that
close.
works.
Wow. And now one is this is user one, this is user two. Okay, so we sent a message from here and nothing is showing here, right?
Yes.
That's because we've not started listening for any given message, right? We've not started
Yeah.
listening to a given message that's coming from the backend.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So how do we listen for a message? So for us to listen for a message, remember we've been using adding event listeners here, like the open events, the close events.
Yeah.
We're going to add a new event here, which is the message event, right? So add
Okay.
event, which is the message event. I see my editor is even helping me do the job. Once I open that, can tell me, oh, which kind of event
Yeah.
you want to listen for. So when there is a message, we just call a method, right? So we just console log here, new message received, and we just put in. I think the method gets the event,
Event. Yeah, it takes in the event. And we'll have
so
to
we
do
can then
the update thingy as well.
event data. We have to do what?
I said we'll have to do the update, update message to the list as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. We'll have to call the update message method. So after that, we've gotten the message. What do we need to do next? We need to first of all get the message object, right?
Yes.
Because it's a stringify object, we can do json.pass
Pass it to a
and dot data, right?
yes.
And then just open up this a bit. Yeah, event.data. So once we get the data, if the message is actually the message we are looking at, right? So want to do event dot message dot event. You know that this message is an object, right? So an object like that has the event as a name of the event, and then the data as a string, right?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So and we're saying if the message dot event is equal to chat, then it's the message we're looking at receiving,
Okay.
right?
Yes,
So
please.
just console log here. We're adding more console logs, chat message, and we're just going to put in the message dot data, the message here dot data, right? So
Yeah.
after having the message dot data, what do we want to do again? We want to update the list,
Yeah, please.
passing in the message dot data and then its sender will be false because this message was not received was received from another source, right? It wasn't
Yes.
sent by the person.
I, yeah.
Okay. So I believe we'll understand this. Like we're getting the event here, which is an object here. The message object has the event, which is, and we're checking the event type to make sure it's chat. And we're also logging the data, and then we're updating the list. Okay, so let's refresh our two clients. Let's refresh this other one. We get the two connections. Now let's send a message. Click send. See that hello melody is showing here. That means
Yeah.
we're receiving a message from this other person. And when we send a message from here, let's say
Hi, Kelechi.
we send, see that hi Kelechi is coming over here.
Yeah.
Right, so this is our WebSocket connection going in. So whenever, remember we discussed several things, let's inspect the network and see what's going on. If you look at the network tab, as you send messages, you see that they are still making use of the same TCP connection. So let's reconnect so we can capture that. So you can see if you look at the WebSocket local host connection, they're still making use of the same connection. They are not establishing new ones.
Yeah.
If I send the message and I look in here, you see that it's still making use of the same TCP connection.
Yeah.
It's
That
not
first.
establishing a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I send another message, it's still sending it through the same connection, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't have to like, and I'm receiving the message here. I didn't have to refresh, right, to receive that message. So that's what that real-time communication is all about. It's the server getting to notify all connected clients of a new event. It could be something, let's say you're building a payment system where the dashboard needs to update whenever a payment has been made, maybe an order or a delivery has been made, something like that. You want to have a website where or a web application where once a payment is made, you don't need to refresh. You looking at the dashboard, it automatically updates. That's what socket and WebSocket connection or WebSocket protocol handles. I think that's it for the demo, or that's it for the test application. We've successfully built a chat application. Um, so that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. The code should equally be on GitHub. So in case you want to, pull
Yeah, yeah.
clone.
So let me just push the code on GitHub. I'll just open up a new tab.
Okay.
Should I push this to a new branch?
Yeah. I think you should check out to a new branch. So you can see
Okay.
final code.
Yeah, that should be
I always use the feature of flags of ft slash, you know,
FC slash what?
like I always use the feature flag, just to, know it's a feature.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know. It's
I'm not
just.
using the whole Scrum methodology. Uh, okay, I've pushed the code.
All right, that's awesome. All right,
Yeah.
guys. That was WebSocket in general, and that was a live demo with WebSocket communications and stuff like that. We are definitely going to be anchoring our next section on 2 weeks from now, which is going to be another live section where we get to talk about something. We are going to push out a flyer to notify you on what we'll be talking about. And also, Kelechi and I are deciding on, you know, uh, diversifying a bit, giving you more content, and that would allow us sometimes on our YouTube channel. We are planning on, having these sequences where we push out very interesting videos, uh, pre-recorded videos, just so you have more content on our YouTube channel and things that would uh, inform you the more. And we'll discuss about that and reach out to you, or probably reach out or reach on a decision from our next section. And yeah, so go ahead and subscribe to our channel, please. We need subscribers in this channel. We definitely need it. It's going to help us, know that we are actually doing something that is helping people a
Yeah.
lot out there, and people actually benefiting from our contents. So please subscribe,
Yeah.
turn on your notifications so you get notified whenever we go live. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. All right. So
Cool
that's a bye.
jam.
Yeah,
Bye
cool jam.
bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Yeah.